Yeah, welcome to The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. And yeah, we're getting into some interesting material here as always, right? And I'll basically elaborate on the sort of ideas that we're going to bring forward today. I appreciate you guys joining us today. And this is a special type of stream, but where we engage in sort of well, recently we've sort of been sort of taking a long look at the history of transhumanism, right? So it's sort of like something where we're looking at how the ideas of the ancient past, right? Or, you know, way in the past, as far back in the past as we can muster, right? Can try to explain those ideas that go into the far future, right? So we're looking at sort of, Greek philosophy, right? Eastern religions and, so on and so forth, right? And we're also looking at the ideas of, you know, the modern political systems, right? So it's obviously a huge, insight as to where, man functions within these modern sort of systems, right? And this sort of collective, you know, sort of maybe atomization or depersonalization, right? And over socialization, right? So all of these various forms in which man inhabits in his modern times, right? Also, we look at this notion of evolution, okay, and we try to see if there's any idea of progress within this idea of evolution, okay, because you have this modern ideal of the myth of progress, right? We're trying to examine if the concept of evolution has any part to play in this sort of progress, right? The pseudo eschatology of progress, as it were, right? So this is a weird time to announce this, and I will go more into that, right? More into all of those various domains, right? That I just mentioned, right? And I've explored this subject from many different areas. So if I sort of go off on a sort of tangent and then come back with something else, some of those insights are rare at some point, right? So you have to appreciate that we're sort of flowing from the dome, as it were, right? But on a bunch of different issues, right? But yeah, we got this thing covered. We're going to be coming to you tomorrow morning as well. We have to move the stream times, unfortunately, right? So we have to move the stream time. I know this is going to affect the views, right? Obviously, it'll inevitably affect the views if I randomly change the stream time one week, right? But tomorrow we'll be on in the morning instead of during the night. So it'll be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., hopefully, right? We'll be able to manage that, right? So we'll be on during the day, right? So usually our streams consist of a 1 hour 40 or 45 minute to an hour opener from yours truly, right? The Machine Lies, right? And then I move into text, right, in which we explore certain ideas that relate to the sort of speech that I've made, right? In many different ways, right? so then we move to a sort of chronological unfolding of different ideas, right? So I usually like to move in from looking at the oldest ideas to the newest ideas, right? And that's usually how the show's structured. And we usually take that for about 6 or 7 or 8 hours. As long as the discussions seem fruitful, I'll keep the show going, right? And then for the last maybe 4 or 3 hours or so, or sometimes I have to play replays for like 6 hours, right? If the discussion will just break down and we have nothing else to discuss, and I sort of end the show within the 6 to 7 hour mark, right? Then I'll usually have to play a lot of replays, right? But usually I'll play a little bit of replays, right, when the show concludes, when the discussions conclude, right? And that'll usually be my time spent on other panels that you may have not seen, right? So I've taken a lot of time to go talk to a bunch of people, and sometimes it's recorded. And so we'd like to have a recording of it here too, right? So we'll replay that, and and then we'll have a way that people can reference that for the future time, right? So yeah, so that is kind of there's a structure of the show that we'll be engaging in tomorrow and on all the shows, right? So let's see who's out here for us, right? Of course, we got Panelverse Presents. Thank you so much for being here, sir. I appreciate you. Hit the like button to support the show. Yes, I believe that does support the show. Thank you so much. Blessings to you, right? Okay, Win TML. Yeah, thank you, man. Blessings. We got this alt channel for you guys, right? We got a bunch of sort of material that's available there that's not available on this channel, right? So so sometimes we have to go offline on this channel and we only stream from the other channel, right? So this is a example of a show that we produced on the alternative channel, made by Machine Bob 9. Right, here's a series we produced on the alternative channel when we could not stream here, right? Okay, so yeah, I hope you're safe in the tornado season. Blessings. Any words that were good that I have uttered will be remembered or forgotten, neither of which I have control of. Yeah, I mean, we have control of our actions, but not the fruit of them, as they say, right? But also, we kind of say whatever mistakes we have made are our own, and whatever good we have done is part of the general goodness, right? God, or whatever you may call it, right? So so there's that factor of things, right? That yeah, we have to own our mistakes, but we don't exactly get to own the glory that we bestow upon others, right? We sort of have to create without ownership, so to speak, as the Tao says, right? And so it goes. It's a little bit dark here, so I apologize if I'm sort of disappearing here. Right, in the sort of fusion of the thing. I could go to the other side of the room and turn on the lights, but maybe I'll do that in an hour, right? If we get like a music break going, but I'm too lazy to do it right now. So blessings to the people. Expression is good for the soul. Yeah, maybe it is, but we have this sort of a sickness of expression today, right? People have to be heard, right? And everybody's sort of talking at the same time, and people sort of have nothing to say that's any different from what anybody else says, right? So I mean, as I say, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and yeah, sometimes people you could tell when they talk more than they listen. There's a lot of that going around. Yeah, okay, I appreciate you, Zephyr. Blessings, sailing south. Yeah. Vuelvo al sol. Yeah. Blessings to it. I appreciate you. And yeah, man. Peace be with you, man. The homie Diesel. Dr. E, what's going on? Yeah, man. Early start. I mean, we'll have to do it this way for the next few streams. So hopefully it doesn't affect the views too much. I'll get back to the thing I was outlining in the beginning here, right? Which is this idea of of how the ancient and the modern ideas, have sort of corresponded with various prescriptions, right? Yeah, let's fucking go. Okay, I appreciate you guys. So, Zeph said, "Are you staying on or on now?" Yeah, yeah. So come through if you guys want. Come through if you guys want. Over externalization. What's going on, Dom? Blessings, man. Here, hold on. How come it doesn't show you? Oh, there you go. Hey, what's up? What's going on, man?
Nothing much.
Yeah, you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I saw you in the chat on Hanks. That was interesting.
Yeah, it's just clusterfuck. And I told him I need to talk to you about your streams. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like there's a lot being accomplished there, other than slandering me and whatnot, right? But I don't know. There is a lot. There's a lot of people who want to, they're ready to fight me. They're ready to talk smack about your boy. So that is a common issue, right? And I have incurred a lot of hatred over the years. So I've sort of been a sort of fly in the ointment, as it were, a gadfly, as it were, right? Right, to certain folks. So that does happen. Does this stream? Did this stream just start? Yeah, this stream is on now. We're live right now on the Machine Lies, and we'll be live tomorrow at 7 a.m. So we'll be live throughout the morning, right? 7 a.m. to 7. I mean 7 a.m. to. We'll at least have an open panel for like 6 hours. So from 7 to, I don't know where that takes us, right? To like 2 p.m., right? So we'll have an open panel, right? So you guys come through on the open panel, right? Or in the chat, right? And correspond with the show, right? You can ask us questions and all that. And so we'll only be doing that this week, hopefully, right? So this is the last week. I was gonna take this last week off, but then we lost our ability to stream last week, so this is what happened. So I can't do it anymore. So change of plans, as it were. But I appreciate the correspondence, But yeah, so I was sort of talking about sort of how ancient and modern ideas are linked, and I've provided obviously we provide 3 huge steps, right, that we mentioned, right, which is this idea of one idea that's really not ours, right, that we sort of borrowed from Skolimowski, was this idea of knowledge and values, right? So we presented this sort of seesaw effect between knowledge and values, right? And he said that when knowledge goes up, values goes down. That's the seesaw effect, right? So I mean vice versa, right? When you have values, right, then knowledge has to correspond with those values, right, and so on and so forth. So he talks about sort of 3 instances where this happened, right? One was sort of the compartmentalization of knowledge, right? That happened from from Plato to Aristotle, right? Plato sort of believed, right, in sort of the mystical poetry, right, of the sages, and he sort of saw that philosophy and religion and the state were sort of to be melded in the fusion of sort of beauty and goodness and truth, and this whole beauty and goodness and truth thing, sort of like Sat Chit Ananda, sort of like this greater aspect of being where knowledge is not compartmentalized. It's tied to sort of ethics. It's tied to the sort of religious experience. It's tied to the sort of ethnos, or the language and the culture of the people, and so on and so forth. So these elements, right, get sort of taken away first by Aristotle, and then secondly, there is a sort of fusion of ideas of Aristotle into the church, right, through St. Thomas Aquinas, right? So we talked about the ideas of St. Thomas Aquinas, right? And then we talked about sort of the ideas of Kant, right, where he sort of put so the thing with Aquinas is that he put sort of knowledge, right, of the human experience, okay, he put that in the hands of the state, right? And so he said there's a different law for a reason as there is for faith, right? So he put these two ideas. And of course, this is part of this sort of dualistic understanding, right, of form and matter, substance and accidents, right? Essence and existence, right? And so on and so forth. This map that they draw, right, through medieval philosophy, right? So this whole idea tends to put the idea of the spirit above the idea of the worldly achievements, right? So it separates the idea of the church and the state, right? And then thirdly, Kant sort of says that there's a starry sky above and the moral law within, right? So he says that the morality is part of a sort of a priori justification, for part of a universal scope that exists apart from those justifications that are found in reason and empiricism, and it's part of this universal scope, right? So it's not tied to the the laws of the universe, the physical laws of the universe. It's not tied to physics, right? So Kant then separated Newtonian physics with the ideas of the ethics or morals, right? And then furthermore, you have the positivists and the behaviorists that then say that there's no such thing as metaphysics. There's only knowledge exists. There's no such thing as values, and so on and so forth. And they either dismiss knowledge or values as being fundamental, right, in this last sort of synthesis, right? So that's where we've sort of come to, right? And this can be sort of mapped out in a bunch of different historical sort of progressions that we've outlined, right?
So it's basically empiricism combined with the church, which eventually merged into this scientific revolution, which people like Kant said, we can't use science and empiricism to study or prove morality.
Absolutely, right? So another philosopher was Rousseau, who sort of rejected the Enlightenment philosophy, right? And he said that the arts and the sciences had always corrupted social mores, right? They'd always smashed cultural traditions, right? They'd always led to the appearance of multiculturalism and the degradation of these great empires of the world, right? So he said that great change in history is not towards progress. It's a cyclical change where people build up into this decadence and they infuse, different, cultures and religious systems together, and they form a lifestyle of decadence in the cities. And then the empire collapses, right? And then from the scraps of that empire, a new empire forms, and then it builds up, and then it goes into expansion, and then that expansion builds these cities, and those cities lead to the multiculturalism, and the multiculturalism leads to the corruption of mores, and then the empire collapses. Because this is what happens in history, right? Is that we, by expanding our empire, thinking taking in all these cultures, all these arcane philosophies, and then we degrade our own sense of who we are. We forgot why we became conquerors in the first place. Right. And so the arts and the sciences, he says, have led to a collective depletion of social mores, of morality, and so on and so forth. And obviously, Kant was a student of Rousseau, right? They say, we read in our, biographies, right, of Kant, that when he read the Emile, right, Emile, right, this is a work written by Rousseau that has a boy named Emile and a girl named Sophia, right? And he shows the tutelage of the boy and the girl, right? And how you should raise children, and it's his whole treatise on education, right? And so on and so forth, right? And on ethics and so on and so forth. And it's, I said when Kant read this work, he actually missed his daily walk, right? Called the Philosopher's Walk. They still have it outlined where, where Kant took his daily walk, right? Because he was a celebrity in his time, right? So it's pretty interesting, right? But yeah, so there's this other theory that's antithetical to the idea of progress, right? And there's just also this idea that I presented of Skolimowski, where civilizations, in addition to the fact that civilizations sort of ebb and flow, that there's no direct line of progress, that there's actually an idea where, we've gone up in knowledge, but we've gone down in values, right? We've lost something here, right? And lost something that was essential, right?
One guy who I remember you said, I think you only mentioned him one time, at least I was on here, maybe a couple more, was Mumford.
Right, Lewis Mumford, right. Yeah, he wrote Technics and Man, Technics and Civilization. And of course, we read another work on here by him, that we were busy reading, called The Technics and the Nature of Civilization, right? And of course, he gave that quote that man is a symbol-making animal. So he went into that quote by Mumford, right? Because that's a very interesting quote. Instead of tool making, or I
remember one quote you read by him that I thought was so profound, where he pretty much summed up exactly what you said. What ancient traditions are carrying on now, or what ideas from ancient times influence us? And he said something along the lines of, it was a priest class who built mythology to justify the ruling class. It was a lot more than that, but that was basically it. And that's exactly what's going on. And I think I've explained it before. What I think it comes from myths like Atrahasis, where the so-called gods created humanity to be a slave species. It doesn't matter if this really happened or not. This is just mythology, right? That the elites used to justify their rule. And because humanity was created in the image of the gods to be a slave species, basically we need to be these quiet workers. And in order for this to happen, there needs to be certain people who have the blessings of the gods in order to rule over the city-states and contain the people's potential, basically. And this is the tradition which is carried on all throughout history, is the illusion of people believing they have the authority to rule others because they have some sort of, higher purpose or higher potential that the rest of us just don't have.
Yeah, he's sort of like no, and I believe this is Technics and the Nature of Man, right? It's sort of like a work that he wrote, right? That we were reading on this show through many different you know, sort of you know, sort of installments, right? Because it's sort of, you know, kind of long, but also it's in Scribina's anthology, right? You know, confronting technology. He has a sort of, I believe he has the entire thing printed there, right? Technics and the Nature of Man. And yeah, he sort of talks about the development of this thing called the Mega Machine, right? Where sort of tool making combined with these techniques of social organization, and how tool making, you know, when this took precedence over, you know, other ideas in the culture, right? It sort of deformed the ideas. So he came up with this idea of man as symbol making animal, right? And he talks about the idea of man as tool making, right? And he sort of talks about why this is not, you know, his way of expressing, you know, man's capacity. And there's also another theory by Johann Huizinga called Homo ludens, right, which contributed to his idea of man, right, where he sort of said that man's form of social organization takes precedence over, um, you know, the just simple tool making, right? So he said that the basis for human civilization was actually these cultural games, right, that contributed to social organization. And that's sort of what Mumford said too. He said that man sort of work that was for ritual, right, and for cultural expressions way overtook his you know, his capacity or means of survival. You know, that this is the most fundamental aspect in the development of civilization. You know, the anthropologist sort of missed was these sort of cultural techniques, right? So he sort of talks about the development of what he calls polytechnics, which is a combination of biotechnics, right, tool techniques, and also this sort of development of, you know, man's symbolic capacity, right, of expression, right. So yeah, so yeah, so
What did you say it was? Polytechnics or what?
polytechnics. Yeah, let me see if I could find like I mean, I have the text, you
So
know.
basically, it's multiple techniques and how they impact the society through ritual is kind of what I'm getting.
Yeah, and I have a quote by him that's going to be useful in a second, but
I would say that's so because I don't know what he says it is, but I think the whole purpose of the civilization was to get people to work for it, you know, and work for the people who run it instead of the people working for themselves like they used to before the cities. And from that perspective, you know, if you get people like it is now, highly specialized jobs where they don't really understand how all these different industries mesh together in the grand scheme of things, or they don't understand how to do other lines of work, and you get these stuck in these limited, you know, forms of technique, essentially, it becomes ritualistic because they're doing it, number one, for money, which is an external thing, which is what ritualism is all about. And number two, repetitiously, because ritual is always done repetitiously, because they're trying to ingrain, or I should say, they're trying to bring out certain spiritual characteristics within an individual through ritual. So the whole ritual of the city is, you know, basically just to make complacent workers for it, as far as I can tell. That's pretty much the overall objective.
I don't know if I'm totally frozen or if my thing is frozen or
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, okay. It seems like all right, yeah, here it is. All right. So let me see if I could pull this up. I know I could pull this up, but it'll be really small on the page, but you know, yeah, I know I pulled this up before. But yeah, this is what the copy we have looks like. Right, Technics and the Nature of Man by Lewis Mumford. You know, and on this page 79 here, he gets into something interesting on that on the end of that first paragraph there. Let me actually read that. He says life enhancing cultural work by necessity took precedence over utilitarian manual work. This wider area involved far more than discipline of hand, muscle, and eye in making and using tools. It likewise demanded a control of all man's biological functions, including his appetites, his organs of excretion, his upsurging emotions, his wide-spreading sexual activities, his tormenting and tempting dreams. Even the hand, no mere work tool, it stroked a lover's body, held a baby close to the breast, made significant gestures, or expressed an ordered dance and shared ritual, some otherwise inexpressible sentiment about life or death, a remembered past, or an anxious future. Tool techniques, and this is the main line, tool techniques, and our derivative machine techniques are but a specialized fragment of biotechnics. And by biotechnics, one means man's total equipment for living. So, yeah. And,
almost sounds parasitic.
Yeah, and I think this was the part where he starts talking about the mega machine. You know, that I think that you were sort of
the demiurge is the mega machine. That's what I think is the mega machine. And recently I was talking to someone who had a worldview pretty close to Hyperborean, but with emanationism. It was
right.
weird. But
oh yeah, okay. I found the part with the mega machine, so I'll actually read that part next.
But yeah, I would say that the demiurge is the mega machine behind it all, because I don't really think that the technology we have now sustains life. And there's really no reason I think humans should
that's one thing. That's one thing that that Mumford is bringing up. He's saying that actual techniques are biocentric, right? Meaning they're centered on life.
Yeah, and then the biocentric technology we have is basically reserved for the rich. Which I've seen some that have some, like they got this thing where you can exchange your plasma and your blood, and it basically slows down your aging. And that's like several $1,000s for a treatment. It's insane. But yeah, the technology we have now, it's parasitic because it does exactly that. It does not sustain life. It basically takes what is valuable for life and then uses it for whatever its purpose is, usually for more output, because that's all machines really revolve around, is generating more output and more productivity to improve human labor or human potential in some way. But not all technology is bad. But the technology that makes people forget what is important is bad.
Yeah, that's kind of a point that we've sort of made also is this idea of tools versus machines, right? So we've looked at a lot of work by Mumford, right? He has a documentary on the city, right? E.F. Schumacher has a lot of work talking about simple machines and how sometimes the use of simple machines, and tools instead of larger, machine counterparts, can save on work and expenditure and all sort of things, right? So he's actually shown that uh, sometimes a simpler design is actually more efficient, right? So there's so so it, there's a lot of different ideas. Obviously, there's Petty Linkola and a lot of other deep ecologists like Ernie Ness and also Aldo Leopold that show how sort of bioethics and you know like like what Aldo Leopold calls is a land ethic, right? So there's all these ideas in deep ecology, where including the wild nature into our methods of governance and so on and so forth. That is actually part of the next step in realizing this uh actual model of what a state can do, and so on and so forth, and implying that sort of local communities should take a more prevalent role in governing their forests and so on and so forth, and managing those resources. And so that should be something that should be obvious to people who are creating laws and putting forward new ways of distributing power and so on and so forth. But obviously, that's very hard to do with the systems we have in place. These large scale systems, these large scale technologies. You know,
Absolutely. The thing I'm writing right now, I make a point about technology. There's a section, and I basically make the point that the people who are building technology have forgotten who they're actually supposed to be building it for, because they're supposed to be building it for the layman, the person who is actually going to use their technology and is not in the room with them and doesn't know what they're doing, but they're expected to live in the world with the technology that these people are putting out. Instead, their focus is on outcompeting all the different corporations, all the different governments who are building all this technology that basically just comes at the layman's expense. Because, when it comes out, like farmers, for example, they had to really push in the courts, and I think they might have actually won for their right to actually repair their own farm equipment, because the computer system in the tractors literally would not let them. Like, to what point is this level of control over their product? And I assume that their reason for that is probably has to do with competition from other companies or governments. But I also, it's probably beyond that as well. But if if you're an executive, right, and I know all they care about is products, or not products, profits, and how much they're making in a year in terms of revenue and what their dividends is going to be. But like, at some point, you just have to ask yourself, like, are we just getting ridiculous with our technology we're producing, with the level of surveillance and the level of uh basically infantizing people or infanticizing people, treating them like children? The people who are building technology, they should be building the technology with the respect of the common person who's going to use their technology, or else it's just going to devolve into this mess we have now, where, like, imagine if, like, they made technology so that like an old person could understand it, or they progressed technology in a way so that people were caught up with it instead of like, oh, well, 5 years ago, this was the top thing, but now it's just a dinosaur. Those are my thoughts. It's just too heavily based on competition. They don't remember the layman, the person they're actually building it for.
Yeah. Like efficiency, control, manipulation, competitiveness. Uh, like these are like values of the technological system that sort of Skolomowski put forward. That it has a different ethical basis, and this is something that we've been trying to overemphasize, is that the idea of liberalism has been degraded by the idea of scientific totalitarianism. That this has been a so obviously they've what Dom's pointing out. They had a thing here recently where this lady was suing the water purification plant because ammonium sulfide was leaking out there, and it was causing her to have itchy eyes and blurry vision, and so on and so forth, and the chemicals were poisoning people's eyes, right, and so forth. And of course they found a number of cities here that have lead pipes, and of course people were being murdered by their fridges because the chemical that was being used for the cryogenics in their refrigerator, right, was actually leaking out and murdering them. So they tested this chemical, and they found out that the polyfluorocarbons were that were created by testing this chemical, right, were basically indestructible to like when like faced with like chemicals like uranium. So they used it to line the pipes where they were making the uranium, so the uranium would just slide through the pipes without destroying the pipes. But of course this stuff exists in everything. It exists in the fishes, in the water, in the land. It exists in human beings, right? These PFAS chemicals basically exist inside everything now, right? As does the nitrogen that they use to create the crops, and the chemicals that they spray on the food, basically give us cancer, basically leads to masculinization of females, feminization of males by, the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are in it, and so on and so forth. And of course, these companies know that they're producing these chemicals. There is recently a school that sued a company because they moved a cell phone tower next to a school, and all the kids started getting cancer in the school. So we're being poisoned by the technology and by the chemicals on a massive scale. And of course, the reason why we're human test subjects on a mass scale is because, of course, they want to cut costs and be more efficient, and use mass production and so on and so forth, and they can't recall these things once they produce millions and millions and millions of dollars worth something, right? So it's fascinating how that works, right? But obviously that's the main issue, right? But how many YouTube shows will you see about scientific totalitarianism, ecological destruction, and so on and so forth. Whether it's the lefties that are screaming about how, technology is destroying the planet, right, or the right wingers who are screaming about how traditions and nature and they say they want to go hunting and they're conservationists and they don't care about the nature that's being destroyed all around us. They're a bunch of frauds. These people are a bunch of frauds, right? It's pretty obvious.
I don't know. It seems to me a lot of people overvalue science and technology, though. To me,
Right.
it seems like they think it's going to solve our problems one day. Like one day they're just going to make that one scientific discovery or they're just going to make that one invention that's just going to solve all our problems. And I think by now that myth is definitely fading away, but that's been a big myth for a while, and it's definitely a dangerous one because pretty much all the technology that's been handed to us, as you just pointed out, is mostly not good for us. But then they'll point out, well, people die less, all our medicine, all these diseases we squashed. And it's like, yeah, but, they could do a lot more. And, they could make it a lot more accessible. So really, they're not nearly as good as they claim to be. But I think the reason we have to ask ourselves is, why are we choosing to build this system? Is it really because it's going to make people in positions of power a lot of money? Or is it something beyond that? Or, and I mean, maybe even something beyond, just humans, because what we're doing is basically just creating this sickness on the earth that is like alien to it. Right now, we're like creating a terraformed alien version of the earth, which I'm fairly certain will fail. All these chemicals and all these technologies, they're not going to defeat the earth, but they are going to make life a lot harder for us now and all life around us for a long time, or at least for the foreseeable future. And that's a pretty heavy responsibility to bear for any species, because as far as I'm aware, it's not like I know. For all I know, it has happened before, but I don't think any species has accomplished the level of change that we have brought to the earth. So what do you think is the reason for the why people choose to make these systems, even though it's clearly leading us like towards a slaughterhouse of some kind?
Well, let me actually try to see if I can find this little passage here, right? And then we'll take a little break here, right? In terms of music, but I think Alul had a great line here, right? Because he said, and this is a sort of idea that goes with some concept, because I don't really think that maybe people are as responsible as we'd like to paint them to be, right? Especially in terms of the individual, right? In terms of individual responsibility, right? There's almost a very little left for an individual to do, right, when faced with these sort of overarching systems, right? So that is one aspect of the thing, right? That most people that try to give an answer to the problem, they're sort of conditioned, right? So their responses sort of become things that sort of add to the problem itself, right? So I would say that people, on an individual level, I might say it's almost better to do nothing, or to not contribute in any way, shape, or form to this sort of things that are happening. So there, I would maybe say live a simple life, and so on and so forth. That's what I would prescribe to the individual, but to the collective, right? I think that we should maybe try to abolish any further concept of what our collective progress may sort of like represent, right? So why do people perpetuate these systems? I would think it would be that they either believe in universalism, they believe in progress, right? They believe that humanity even is like different from nature, right? That they feel like they're not from the earth, right? So like a Jew or a hyper Protestant person, they feel that they're sort of fallen into this world and so on and so forth. So they're kind of like, separate from this world. So I think that the ideological factors that cause this have to sort of liberate the individual so that they can sort of figure out what the common confusion is, and then sort of work through it, right? So that might be you know the main idea, right? Is people have to sort of be sort of come to this sort of one person at a time. So from person to person, obviously, and obviously a quote by Mr. Liff, right? That systems exist so we never meet each other. Pretty soon they're gonna outlaw the word brother. So yeah, man. So they're creating algorithms, they're creating methods to corral people into certain communities. So your way is to sort of not do something, or not perform an action that can be planned or taken into account by an algorithm, so on and so forth. So I think I kind of went off there more to what can we do than why do people perpetuate it. I don't know.
But I think it ultimately comes down to solving it is for the individual to reclaim their lost responsibility.
Right. And that's something that Ellul sort of recommends too. This idea of plan locally, think globally. Right, the problems we face are global, but the solutions are local. They're in nature and in our local community, and so on and so forth. Right, so.
Yeah, because one thing I don't think people understand, it seems like most people have it backwards. It's individuals who make up the collective. It's not the collective who makes up the individuals, right? That's how I see it.
Yeah, ideally. But there are certain collectives, like the World Technological System, that does make up individuals, right? Like, for example, the state, right? Like sometimes a state is so controlling and so overarching, and it uses such methods of propaganda that there's no way to distinguish a person from a citizen. I mean, and so on and so forth. And we have such situations that exist today, right? Where there's certain ideas that people will never question, because it makes you look like a loser, make you socially ostracized, and so on and so forth. Right?
Yeah. Well, if you want to have the music break, and then I'd really like to hear what Mumford says about the Mega Machine.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. This is actually, let me come back into the studio. Give me 1 second, because my camera seems to, I don't know, it's like turned off or whatever.
I think Machine left, so it's just me.
All right.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I was gonna start monologuing.
Yeah, there's people who have done that, so yeah, so here is a song called Back to the Universe.
its way where it belongs. I feel space around me. I can't care about you. It's bitter cold. Not yet there. I'm so isolated. If I won't get there, I stay isolated. I gotta put a light on so I can see my body. 'Cause I don't feel it. I can't get no sleep. I'm scared of dying. Sweating, laying in bed in panic. My soul wants to leave back to the universe. Goddamn help me, hey. My soul is back on its way where it belongs. I feel space around me. I can't care about you. It's bitter cold. Not yet there. I'm so isolated. If I won't get there, I stay isolated. I gotta put a light on so I can see my body. 'Cause I don't feel it. I can't get no sleep. I'm scared of dying. Sweating, laying in bed in panic. My soul wants to leave back to the universe.
Good song.
Thank you. It's called Back to the Universe by Dimlight, Dimlite. And yeah, so here is the part about the Mega Machine with no further ado. And I appreciate you guys. But he says, so he says here, and I'll try to go back a little bit. He says, at its point of origin, then Technics was related to the whole nature of man, right? As I explained earlier, primitive technics was life-centered, not narrowly work-centered, still less production-centered or power-centered. As in all ecological complexes, a variety of human interests and purposes, along with organic needs, restrained the overgrowth of any single component. As for the greatest technical feat before our own age, the domestication of plants and animals, this advance owed almost nothing to new tools, though it necessarily encouraged the development of clay containers to hold and preserve its agricultural abundance. But Neolithic domestication owed much, we now begin to realize, since Edward, Hahn, and Levy, to an intense subjective concentration. Wait, what? On sexuality, right? In all its manifestations. Expressed first in religious myth and ritual, right? That's what the myth and ritual were all about, right? Right. So still abundant, yeah, right. So still abundantly visible in cult objects and symbolic art. Plant selection, hybridization, fertilization, manuring, seeding, castration were the products of an imaginative cultivation of sexuality, whose first evidence one finds tens of thousands of years earlier in the emphatically sexual carvings of the Paleolithic woman, the so-called Venuses. But at the point where history in the form of written record becomes visible, that life-centered economy, a true polytechnics, was challenged and in part displaced in a series of radical technical and social innovations. About 5,000 years ago, a monotechnics devoted to the increase of power and wealth by systematic organization of workaday activities in a rigidly mechanical pattern came into existence. At this moment, a new conception of the nature of man arose, and with it, a new stress upon the exploitation of physical energies, cosmic and human. So he's saying instead of this polytechnics, it got replaced with a monotechnics, right? Which is like, you know, it's not centered on all of these, you know, tools and plants and, you know, sex and, you know, and all this stuff, right? So he's saying this one's just focused on expansion of power, right? You know, all the techniques sort of surrender up to the top of the heap, right? So on and so forth, right? So it's totalitarian, right? So this is where he explains this idea of democratic versus totalitarian techniques, right? And we have more material on this, but yeah. But yeah, anyways, he says, and we may actually publish a audio book of Technics and Civilization here on the channel, so that people can listen to it, audio recording of Mumford's work, right? But yeah, anyways, he says, at this moment, a new conception of the nature of man arose, and with it, a new stress upon the exploitation of physical energies, cosmic and human, apart from the processes of growth and reproduction, came to the fore. In Egypt, Osiris symbolizes the older, fecund, life-oriented techniques. Atum-Re, the sun god, who characteristically created the world out of his own semen without female cooperation, stands for the machine-centered one. I think this was a part that,
oh yes,
maybe you were talking about, right? So I wanted to get to this part, right? So isn't that interesting, right?
It sounds like cloning. I know MGTOW's fantasized about it for last decade, so
yeah. So
I remember you reading this, but this was not quite the quote, but this is still a pretty good quote. Yeah, basically what he's describing is when he's talking about the Venus sculpture, and he's talking about a time when people lived more egalitarian lifestyles, And because of this, like what we in Twilight said, you know, ultimately in that society, the woman is more important because they're the ones who are tasked with raising the children more so than the man. Not that the man's just standing around doing nothing, but they're the ones who are really tasked with staying home and keeping the order while the man's out. You know, that's how it was. And then when they started bringing in these man gods like Amun Ra, that's when the technology came in. You see, the patriarchy was more effective than what they had before because it brought more security and it brought more efficiency because they actually innovated technology. But it came at the expense, like we talk about, is of people's value and people's inherent responsibility, because they start giving themselves to these systems of man rulership, and the people who are ruling are giving them tools to help them be better workers. Responsibility is lost.
Yes, or as Max Stirner would say, they got possessed by spooks.
By spooks? Is that what you said?
Yes, the systems, their ideas took power over them, and they lost control over themselves. So their ideas took over their society.
Yeah, maybe this this sun god, right? Which he's specifically pointing out the fact that this sun god did not have a female counterpart, to point out that it was a stepping away from the fertility cults that were sort of talking about life-oriented tool techniques instead of this machine-centered techniques of the goal of power, because everyone serves the sun god, right? The sun god represents a movement from the polytechnics to the monotechnics, is what he's saying, right? Which is an interesting way of putting things, honestly. All right. I don't know if I should, right. But yeah, it is quite an imaginative template that he's laid out there. But yeah, so he goes on to say, right, and this might be this might in our own sort of degree represent this movement from the nature gods to the human gods in the human temples that look like humans, right? From the gods that were representing natural forces, right? They're kind of more general and abstract. And we also saw that in the movement from Thales' philosophy, where he said all is full of gods, to then the movement to this sort of monotheistic idea, right, where it's just one god that's sort of above nature, and there's a plethora of things going on in nature. There may be multiplicity of powers in this world, but there's only one power above nature, so on and so forth, and that lends to the monotheistic model as well, right? So I mean, it's just interesting, right? But yeah, so this is how anthropologists sort of square this one, right? Square the concept of the development of religion in the context of civilization, right?
And I like how the anthropologists do it.
Yeah. TML growl talking over the surround sound. What? Yeah, maybe I'm getting hoarse because of the what do you call it? Fasting. Because it is a dry fast, so no water as well. But yeah, so let's go to this. He says the expansion of power through ruthless human coercion and mechanical organization took precedence over the nurture and enhancement of life. The chief mark of this change was the construction of the first complex, high-powered machines. And there was the beginning of a new regimen accepted by all later civilized societies, though reluctantly by more archaic cultures in which work at a single specialized task segregated from other biological and social activities not only occupied the entire day, but increasingly engrossed the entire lifetime. That was a fundamental departure, which during the last few centuries has led to an increasing mechanization and automation of all production, with the assemblage of the first collective machines by its systematic dissociation from the rest of life, became a curse, a burden, a sacrifice, a form of punishment. And by reaction, this new regimen soon awakened compensatory dreams of effortless affluence, emancipated not only from the slavery, but from work itself. These ancient dreams, first expressed in myth, but long delayed in realization, now dominate our age. Now, this is the critical part. This is the last part, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. The machine I refer to was never discovered in any archaeological diggings for a simple reason. It was composed almost entirely of human parts. These parts were brought together in hierarchical organization under a rule of an absolute monarch whose commands, supported by a coalition of priesthood, the armed nobility, the bureaucracy, secured a corpse-like obedience from all the components of the machine. Let us call this archetypical collective machine the human model for all later specialized machines, the mega machine. The mega machine. That's some heavy metal philosophy right there, motherfuckers.
The human hive mind dictated by ideologies of madmen, basically psychopaths.
Yeah.
Well,
Human.
not all people who dominate are psychopaths, but when the system dominates it, it looks like psychopaths.
Right.
I guess that psychopathy is the praxis of most systems.
The people who want to rule over other people are almost always psychopaths because they think they have a right to rule over people to begin with. No normal person wants to do that. Just ask yourself, Hank, like, if someone came to you and they were dead serious, you say yes or no, it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. They say there's this guy in this house and he's done a whole lot of bad things. He blew up some hospital and he has these other terror cells under his control. We can take him out, but there's also like 30 other people in his house who are not connected with him. Should we blow him up, Mr. President, or not?
So, Dom, from my perspective as an artist, normal people do it all the time, but they're just so numerous that they don't even perceive other people's opinions. So, no, normal people do want to do it, and they want to do it all the time, and they just say, well, it doesn't matter because we have the power.
So you think if a normal person was actually presented with that option in their face, what do you think they would say?
They would just default to the status quo, whatever it is.
So they probably blow them up.
Yes.
Well, that's a fair answer.
Yeah, which is why they happen to blow up.
Well, if we take like when Obama was president, for example, he was doing stuff like he'd blow up the house that I just described, and then he would blow up the first responders who would go and rescue the people. He'd do a double bombing.
Yeah, if the common people had the issue with it, well, the president's house would blow up by the end of the day, but they don't. In fact, they like it.
I would like to see that, but I don't think the people have what it takes to do that, quite honestly. But it's okay when it happens to other people because it's not happening to them.
Apparently. And some people are in a rush, and they'll make it happen to themselves if need be.
But this is my point about the people who rule over us are psychopaths, because they're going to be like, yeah, blow them up, and they're not even going to think about it anymore after that, except when they have to give a press release and when they're preparing for the press release.
Yeah, but like if you put a non-psychopath in charge, like a W, well, they'll defer their decision making to a psychopath because it feels natural to them.
You say George W?
Yeah, I don't think he's psychopathic, but he had Cheney as a vice president, so
Well, he was definitely idiotic.
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's just other types of people that are in some respects worse than psychopaths, like the histrionics that just want anything for their attention. The autists that I'm a member of are very mechanistic by default, so that may be bad in itself. This would make this big giant meat grinding machine for whatever purpose they desire. So I'm not sure there's any right person, right kind of people for being in charge, but it just happens to be the way the world runs efficiently.
You just said it, Hank. No one's fit to rule over no one is fit to rule over millions of people, right? And that's why it's a hive mind, because humans aren't meant to live like that. Human beings are meant to live lives where they go out and they help the people around them. They interact in the world they want to based off of their desires and imagination. And ideally, it's ultimately up to the human. They're going to do something that's ultimately beneficial for the people around them. That's what a normal person does. But the psychopath, like these people, they look around and they say, we can do better. So what I need to do is I need to convince all these people that I know better than they do and get them to do what I say. And that's the problem.
Well, no, it's not the problem, because there are other systems that end up being horrible too. Like you can have a hereditary monarchy, so it's not be the psychopaths in charge, it'll be just the families in charge, and just bad apples off the tree, and then you're gonna have a bad time. You can have just normal despotism, but normal despots are just, you have to deal with the the bell curve, and they just won't be able to take the right actions to keep anything running for a long time. There's problems with every system we pick. Maybe we need to stop picking systems at all, but I think people tried that too, and that didn't work either.
People have to want it. People don't want it because they've been conditioned by the mega machine, right? They've been conditioned to be basically a Borg drone, is what the common person is. They're a part of this system, which is a collective, and they let the collective do their thinking for them, right? That's what I mean by Borg drone.
I don't think it's conditioning. I think it's innate. It's a thing they want to do by their nature.
I don't think that. I think what happened was, when these systems of authority first came about, it seemed appealing to people, and then it reached a point where the people didn't know how to get out. And now we're at a point where it's just been so ingrained to us, we don't even remember how it was before these systems. So I don't think it's innate. I think that it's literally thousands of years of conditioning.
Well, getting out is simple, it's just not easy. So to get out, you just go naked and afraid in the woods, and they hope you eat the right things and breathe somehow. But it's just not appealing because the woods suck, especially with all the equipment.
People don't know how to do that.
So some people do know to do that. It's just not many people, and even if they do know to do that, most of them prefer society. But there are some exceptions. There are exception people who, like Alaska, they had a thing going on there where they had the tribes and just lived off the land and migrated and stuff. But the colonists pushed all kinds of stuff on them and force people to be in their system too. So there is some colonization stopping out groups of people who's made it work some different way, and that is an issue. But they couldn't resist. They didn't have the power to resist. So they got forced into line.
Exactly, and that's what the Mega Machine does, right? Is it's like a vacuum cleaner. It doesn't want you to leave it because you're a potential source of labor. You're a potential source of power or fuel for it. So, people. This is why I say it's very difficult, and I think we agree to this. It's very difficult to get off grid. Like only few people know how to go out there and live naked and afraid. And even if you do manage to form some sort of community similar to the Amish, you're still going to have to pay some sort of property tax. You're still going to have to obey by federal and state laws. So it's very difficult to escape these systems because literally everyone thinks that you have some sort of obligation to society. Right?
Without everyone, I mean, like the psychopaths don't think they have an obligation to society, but the thing
Most
is,
people, I'd say
yeah,
most.
yeah, but yeah, even if you assume no obligation to society, it is still the fact that if you piss too many people off, they will retaliate against you.
Unless they get to a point where they're so broken they don't even remember how to retaliate.
Yes, but then you may be the psychopath. Someone had to break them.
Yeah, I mean, it's either going to be us or it's going to be the earth. Because as TML and I were talking about earlier, the way of the psychopath is just not sustainable for life. They rely on taking. They don't actually give anything back. And at some point, you're going to reach the end of the well. And, what then for these psychopaths when they've literally taken all they can possibly take?
Yes, so I saw a lot of game theory on this. So it's rational for society to cooperate, but in the cooperating society, it's rational to take advantage of them. But in a society where everyone takes advantage of each other, it collapses. It can't maintain itself. So it's like a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing.
Okay. Besides safety and security, why is it rational for society to follow what these psychopathic leaders are saying?
It is not rational.
Oh, I thought you said it was.
Well, you said besides safety and security, then nothing after that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, it's not rational because without freedom, what does safety and security even matter?
Well, it does matter because you could be free to be non-existent, and it's not an important kind of freedom to me. I don't really care about that kind of freedom. It's kind of useless.
I mean, I think the whole purpose of the government and the social contract in the modern day is basically because people think that there's bad people in the world. So we need this central authority, which has a monopoly on violence, to basically suck up the bad people and put them in, keep us non-bad people safe. Well, there's two problems with that. First of all is that's not really how it's worked out. The social contract has failed because the government has not at all held up their end of the bargain. They inherently make the world more dangerous for everyone pretty much daily from everything they do. And the second reason is if we agree that there are people who are bad and we know what makes a bad person bad, why do we need to grant some special group of people authority and power to determine what is good and bad for us and have this monopoly on violence and force while the rest of us...
Premise 2 is false. We don't know what makes a bad person bad, and we regularly disagree on it. So we set up this bureaucracy to as a group come up with what's good and what's bad. So we average it out and enforce that policy, and we use the legislation judicial process to try to air out errors or correct for the process. It fails too, but it isn't. It's more stable.
Well, I would argue that without government, there would be less wars. So that would increase stability in people's lives who are affected by those wars. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that.
I agree. There will be less wars, but there will also be more violence.
Well, this goes back to what you said. We don't know what makes harm because people can't agree on it, or we don't know what makes a person bad. I'm sorry, is because people can't agree on that. But we can agree on, or most people would agree, that there are bad people in the world, right? I would say most people would agree with that. Would you agree with that one, Hank?
Negative. No, I do not agree that there's bad people in the world. There's alignment issues, and then we'll perceive other people as bad if they don't align with our goals.
Okay. So what are these goals?
Well, I want to pay my bills. I want to play my games, and I want to live in this right now probably suburban, close to the urban area. So those are my those
Okay.
are
Well,
my
I
basic
didn't mean
imperatives right now.
your goals specifically. I just meant like I just meant like a broader generalization, but I get what you mean. So when it comes to goals, I think that the goal should be to live your life the way you want ultimately, right? And then beyond that, what makes a person a bad person is they don't let other people live their life the way they want. They want to interfere in other people's life in some way or somehow that is typically harmful and against the other person's consent or against their voluntary will. So
Yeah, but they perceive my playing of games to be an evil act, so they want to stop it.
exactly. So I mean, if you're just at home playing a video game, that there's no evil act being committed. So if people try to stop you, like if someone breaks into your house to stop you from playing a video game, which is something I'm sure would never happen, but if theoretically that did happen, then you would have the right to defend yourself, if you have like a gun or a sword or whatever. If there's an invader in your house, you have the right to self-defense. And that's because they initiated the harm, because you're at home doing something that's subjectively not harmful because it doesn't interfere with other people's life. But these people have determined that it is harmful and they're going to go and interfere in your life, right? That's where the disagreement comes in, is people think that what other people are doing is wrong when it's not actually wrong. So then they're going to actually go and do the wrong themselves to stop other people from doing the perceived wrong. That's, I think, where the disagreement comes in.
Yes, but is it right or wrong for me to, in anticipation of them trying to break into my house, or even to pull other underhand measures to prevent me from playing the games I want to play, for me to disrupt their move so they can't possibly do that? Would that be wrong?
I'm sorry. Could you say that again, Hank?
Yes. So would it be wrong for me, in anticipation of them trying to pull underhanded moves to prevent me from playing my games, disrupting it ahead of time before they lead up to their part? Because it's not going to be the first move to come into my house and take my computer away. They're going to pass legislation and try to verify my identity, and then audit me. Then they come in. But if I, in anticipation that just ruin their reputation and expose them of being totalitarians and hypocrites as well.
So you're talking about going on the attack?
Yes.
Well, That's an interesting dilemma. That's kind of funny. But basically, it comes down to, if they have intent and you know for a fact that they're going to actually do it and you can verify that, they're going to actually break into your house and initiate harm, and you have a way to sidestep that, I don't see anything wrong with that. I'd go for it.
Yes, but if I do it right, I won't be able to prove that they were going to be able to get as far as going into my house and grabbing my computer. And that's the dilemma.
The dilemma is that you can't prove that they were going to do it in court. But you were talking about your retaliation is going to be slandering them.
Yes, slandering them so they will not have the political opportunity to get the state to come into my house and take my computer.
Well, so you're talking about people using the government. I mean, really, there's no difference from someone doing it themselves or someone having the government go and do it on their behalf. There's only, it's just people who don't really want to get their hands dirty, but still want the action done and support it. But when it comes to this, the only person you really have to prove it to is yourself and maybe some other people who are going to get involved, like, I don't know, the people's family. If you can prove to them that this was something that you did in self-defense, that you sidestepped, even though I'm not sure how that would go, because families are typically very reactive and supportive of their family member, regardless of if they did right or wrong, because most people don't have principles. But, in this situation, I would say you have to have 100% certainty. So maybe one tactic could be you bait them into your house for proof, and then you're like, yeah, they were in my house, so I know that they planned to do harm, but you weren't actually there, and your computer or whatever they wanted to take was safe.
But I don't have 100% certainty of anything at all. So under your model, I can't do anything.
Well, you can't have 100% certainty, but you can have an idea of how someone's going to act based off of their previous actions, which unfortunately might come at the expense of some other people. But if you see a person or you know them, or if you're like involved with some gangster or mafia type person and you know their reputation, you have an idea of how they might be, right? So, I would say act accordingly around people that who you think are dangerous or thieves.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just someone said it in the chat. It's all about principles, and I say that a lot, but most people don't have them. That's why they need external authority figures to tell them how to live their life. That's what it comes down to. And that's why most people are bad. And most people are bad also because they had traumatic upbringings or they had traumatic situations, and then they carry that with them through an adult, and that ends up impacting their decisions. It's just basically the past scripts of their life impacting the new scripts of their life in the present day, because they haven't figured out how the past has influenced their life up to the present moment.
Yeah, that's why I model morality with emotivism, because most morality is just an opinion backed by a boomstick.
Unfortunately, that is the way it is now. Well, that's the way it's been for a long time. Before that, it was with swords or spears or bows or whatever. The point is, people think might makes right, and I think I was on your panel today, and I said this, that It's actually right that makes minds. Righteous action and righteous thoughts and intentions. Because when people want to interact in the world in the way that is naturally right for them to act, they're going to do good things in their life because they're not doing things that harm other people. They're doing things that they want to do that are bringing nourishment to their own individuality. But the world we live in doesn't really allow for that, right? It wants you to go down the path of a specialist who's going to go exchange all this time for these pieces of paper that are built on fake trust, right? Called money.
It's real trust, actually. It's made out. So money's made out of It used to be leisure. Money is derived from leisure, which is basically spreadsheets. And to even coin it, the government will have to borrow it and enforce it. And it's really just a magic trick to get people to work for the leisure. So it's pretty much it's guaranteeing something, whatever it is. Then people work on the guarantee. So it's real trust. But if you don't trust them, you might as well just get out of the country, whatever you are, but out of the gang zone.
In the document I read, I don't know what you've looked at, but in Modern Money Mechanics, it basically says that trust is this: that when you take your money to the store and you have your cart full of stuff and you present your money to the cashier, the trust is that the cashier is going to accept your money everywhere you go within the country and exchange it for the product that you put in your cart, right?
Yes,
the trust is that the money has value, but it doesn't.
Yes.
That's why I call it fake trust.
So you don't value. All right. Value is just an opinion, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what it said. Is people's opinion is that the money is worth something, but in reality, it's not actually worth anything. It's only worth It only has value because people believe it has value. That's pretty much what it says in their own documents.
So people's beliefs have no value?
Do people's what?
So are you saying people's beliefs themselves? And let me restart. Do you value people's beliefs? Yeah. Do you value people's beliefs?
Generally, I value people's beliefs if it brings them, closer to principles and truth. But generally, that's not the case.
Okay, so you value people's beliefs only if they agree with you.
Well, if they agree with the truth, they're not necessarily agree with me. If they think something that I don't think and I happen to be wrong and I find out that they're right, I will eventually change my mind to what is true, right? So that's what I mean by people who believe in things that bring them closer to truth. So that's one of the things I mean, at least.
So most people value other people's beliefs because it predicts what their next action is going to be. So that's why most people value beliefs, because it's an easy way to predict the action.
And you know who values that more than anyone else, Hank? The ruling class.
Yes.
That's literally that's literally how they do everything, like I was just explaining with money, because people believe money exists. Now the ruling class can predict that people are going to go work their ass off for 40 or 50 years to chase that money. So yeah, that's that in action right there.
Yeah, but if you just don't believe it anymore and just take what you want, you end up in a cage.
Yeah, they are. People are in a cage. People's beliefs inherently put their mind in a cage, basically.
Yes, but if you didn't believe what they believe, they'll throw you in a prison cell. Throw you in a prison cell, and you playing peekaboo if it doesn't make that freaking building go away.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, that this goes back to what I said, right? The vacuum of the mega machine, it wants to suck everyone into it, and if you don't play along, well, they got a place for you. Even though it costs them a whole lot of money to have all these people incarcerated, they'll still do it. People make a lot of money off of it too. I really don't understand how that works, but wardens make a whole lot of money.
So if you're able to find freedom in your cage, well, then you won.
I'll be right back. Hold on.
But yeah. You can go on principles, but if your principles leads to a bad result, then your principles really just don't stand.
Okay, I'm back. I heard something about principles you said.
Yeah, if your principles lead you to a bad result, your principles don't stand.
Well, this is why I say, Hank, the principles have to be in alignment with truth. And what is truth? It's pretty much what I say, right? Actions which do not generate harm. So you have to develop principles about how or about what not to do in the world, right? That's basically what it revolves around. You accept responsibility for yourself. Once you understand that you as an individual are responsible for your actions at all times, you'll look around you and you'll realize that everyone else is responsible for their actions just as much as you are. And because of that, you let them live their lives because you respect their sovereignty as a being and responsibility in their lives to author their own lives. Authority. That's what it is all about, authoring your own life.
So what is truth? Truth is just a feeling. People have opinions about what we should do or shouldn't do, and what kind of harm it's causing. Some people say driving is harmful because pollution. Some people say eating the wrong thing is harming because of environment. Some people say picking the wrong job is harming because of capitalism. So it's just opinions all around.
Okay. So if you go back and you watch the live stream from today, or you watch the live stream from last week or whatever, you're going to watch things exactly as they happened. There's not anything anyone can do to change, just based off their feelings or their perceptions, what happened on the live stream. The reason people don't think truth is objective is because, unless you're someone like Steve-O, your whole life isn't recorded, right? So this is why people can say, well, it's just all subjective and made up. Well, we really don't know that. I'd say take everything with a grain of salt, but don't completely dismiss it either. There is an objective truth. There is definitely things that happened. There are things we cannot change. And that is the truth. That they're the things that have happened, the objective things we can, measure and observe, and they're unchangeable.
There could be objective truth, but there's no reason to believe that we have access to it because that's in the realm of the real, and we can only perceive the imaginary and the symbolic.
Well, I would say that since we evolved in the natural world, we lived in the natural world for thousands of years, we do now. And the natural world is, as far as we're concerned, the objective truth, as far as we humans are concerned, the natural world we live in is the objective reality. Since we came from that, I think we have the tools well enough to understand it, to live a good life. We don't need to understand absolutely everything, but we can understand what's important.
But the issue is you disagree with some people on what a good life is.
Well, I think a good life is being able to make your own decisions free of other people's um prejudices, or more importantly, their coercion. Like I say, the ability to author your life. This is the choices that come up, or the opportunities that come about in your life. You choose from them, not other people. This is what makes a free person a free person. They don't have this imposed birth certificate or this imposed social security card like we do, because we're not free. But even with these limitations, we can still find some freedom. But the person who's totally free, where they make all the choices in their life, there's no middleman there extracting a little bit here and there like the government does from their labor. That is a beautiful thing. Okay. And that is what is objectively right. And that's how we should live, because that's how we used to live when we first came about in the earth. When human beings first came about, that's how we lived.
And
we live based off our own responsibility. Yeah, go ahead.
That's just your opinion. We used to live that way, and the people who run society decided, well, that's not the best way to live, so they changed the way we live.
But at the same time, that's just their opinion.
Correct.
And the only reason it's valid is because all these people believe it's valid.
No, that's not the only reason. They were also able to implement their vision.
Because people went along with what they were saying. Like if you had like Steve Jobs and no one listened to Steve Jobs and he had to do it absolutely all on his own, there'd be no Apple. He was the one telling everyone what to do. That's why everyone hated him. Like, you got to do this. You got to put all these songs on this little cube.
Well, there still could be an Apple. I mean, he didn't restrict Steve Wozniak yet. He could work with some other visionary, and we could have got this. The same items could have fell out. Maybe they were just always going to happen.
Possibly, but if people didn't follow him, it wouldn't happen. He like. I'm not saying leaders are a bad thing, but leaders whose will are imposed on everyone at all time within a set jurisdiction through coercion and through order followers who only answer to that leader are unnatural and a bad thing. There's really no place for them.
If it's unnatural, then why does it exist now?
Because human beings are living in an unnatural state. We have accepted, we've accepted a way that diminishes life and the quality of life on this planet. There's something going on with humans that is beyond natural for us to accept this way of living.
Would you say supernatural, the way of living?
I would say that it's a combination of thousands of years of trauma, humanity not wanting to move past our trauma, getting caught back in a feedback loop of the past, and being guided by the same class or group of individuals essentially every step of the way. The priest class, the king or the government, the banksters or the monetary people, bureaucrats, priests basically are bureaucrats.
Yeah, always has been.
Yeah.
But you argue that, well, if we were in a natural state, it wouldn't happen, but you can't explain why it happened the first time.
I thought I did, right? Or were you not here?
Well,
I
well,
explained how it
well,
happened.
well,
I
yeah,
could do it again.
people did something stupid, but you said if they were in a natural state, it wouldn't happen. But they were in started from a natural state, and it did happen.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say happened again. Okay. There was a time when people lived egalitarian lifestyles and they were basically in tune with the earth. They looked around themselves. They saw life living all around them. That was nature. That was God. It was literally life, and we all came from the Great Mother. This is what people used to think before this civilization came along that people remember as Atlantis, which is this ancient civilization also known as the Anunnaki. Now, who the Anunnaki are, I don't know. I'm not going to say they're aliens. I personally think that they were more advanced humans. Whoever these beings were, they came along and they brought a way of living that the people clung to because it produced efficiency in their lives. You know, like the cities, basically. Things like the plow, things like the wheel. These technologies brought about efficiency in people's lives, but in exchange for accepting these efficiencies, in exchange for accepting civilization, the people basically they gave up their responsibility and value to these things. And in order to justify their rulership over the people, whoever these Anunnaki Atlanteans were, they came up with some pretty good mythology that convinced everyone around them that they're gods, basically creating a cargo cult. So people worship these advanced people because they have technology they don't. They're basically doing magic. They're presenting them a new way of living that's unlike anything they've come across, but it's a trap. And they fell for the trap, and we've not been able to come out of this trap. That's how it happened, I think.
So,
Fairly
if you said less advanced, your story would have been consistent, but now you just moved to the level. How did the Anunnaki come up with this stuff if they were natural in the first place? It shouldn't have been possible for them to create this system if they were natural.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, all I could really do is theorize, Hank. There's no definitive answer on how the Anunnaki did it, but based off the myths, this is what they say happened. You know, they're going to say they came from mountains, or they're going to say they came from the sky. You know, whatever they were doing, they knew stuff, you know, like measurements and astrology in a way that the average person didn't. And they use this to build civilization at the expense of freedom. But yeah, I mean, I could speculate on who I think they were, but I mean, there's just no way to tell for certain.
I guess that's kind of convenient for you. But if you assume we can't get to the state from a natural state, then it's just we have to either conclude it's in an unnatural state, and it always has been in an unnatural state.
Yeah, so I mean, I could say what I think they are, but it's going to be speculation. But you know, I of course I'm going to say I think I'm right until someone shows me otherwise. What I think they are is they're like this group of scientists or aristocrats who they got. I don't know what they did, but they made some huge scientific discoveries, and they were able to extend their life, and they made all this other technology, and they said to themselves, we need to create this thing to make our ways more efficient, because they were ultimately, I think, geneticists. But they ultimately, I think, created this AI, which I think is a crystal, because with a crystal, you can contain light fractals in the form of information that lasts forever. And then eventually this AI just took them over. And they're basically now slaves to this AI. That's what I think they are. I think that they're just some people who made some discoveries, and then they ended up screwing themselves and everyone else around them over.
Yes, and so actually, I agree with that, but I attribute it to not the Anunnaki, but just normal humans. So I think that is the explanation, but that would mean you can always get from a so-called natural state to this state. There's a straight line path directly through this, and that's what we call is our history. That through line through time is our history.
Yeah, but I don't disagree that they might be humans, but they are remembered as the Anunnaki. These humans, if they were humans, they're still the Anunnaki. And also another thing that they did with these Anunnaki is they try to equate themselves with the natural world. Like there's this one of Enki and Ninhursag, and Ninhursag is the Earth's mother, and Enki is the father. And they literally equate Enki with water itself, which basically impregnates the Earth and births all these daughters. He births 9 daughters, and each one represents a stage of life. It's kind of like the 7 days of creation, this Enki and Ninhursag myth. But they'll try and equate these gods to these natural forces. And while I don't dismiss that account, and I see what they're doing, it's very clever using the archetypes they know to equate with these natural forces. But I also see it as another form of these people, or even people coming after them, using their image to create a mythology to justify the ruling class. Because if the gods, who gave the king all this power, if they're the ones who literally created the earth through these processes that gave us life, who are we to question the king who they appointed? This is the power of their myth. Yeah.
So this question is coming from left field. Do you consider yourself to be an Anunnaki member?
No. I reject the Anunnaki. They're insane beings. They literally are the source of all this bullshit we see today. They are. They're the source of all our unnatural way of living. They're the reason that we built this system of unsustainable life. It's because we're following the ways that they set for us, and we don't know how to get out of it.
Maybe we're not taking responsibility for our own actions, and it's better to blame someone else, ethereal.
Well, this is what I say, right? Like pretty much all I say on my channel is, it's all about taking responsibility for your own actions, because this is what the ruling class does not want. They want obedient workers. And, this goes in line with the first sacred principle that I talked about is self-responsibility, accept that you are the only person who is capable of making choices in your life. You can't rely on external figures. You can't rely on other people. If you're a kid growing up, you're going to be more reliant on your parents. But ideally, your parents are raising you in a way to where you're going to be self-reliant, which I know is not the case, and it's ideal, but that's the way children should be raised, so that they're like, I'm my own individual. My actions are mine, and my actions bear real consequences and impact in the world. That's absolutely what it's all about. And that's what the Anunnaki made us forget when they brought all this technology and civilization.
I heard you. I've just said no comment.
Yeah, I think a lot of people disagree with me in the chat. But yeah, I see where they're coming from because the word Anunnaki typically implies aliens, but when I'm using it, I'm just referring to the old gods that people used to worship. I think they were flesh and blood people who basically brought civilization to this planet somehow, or, I'm not saying they came from a different planet, but before these people, there was no civilization like the way we think of now. There was no cities. There was no things like the plow or organized agriculture. They brought it all. And some communities might have figured some things out along the way, but they centralized it in a way no one else could.
So I mostly agree with your model. I was thinking we could just appoint gods from our people. So basically, our models are equivalent, except we could just make our own gods, usually our people, to start.
So, are you familiar with cargo cults?
Yes, cargo
Yeah.
cults, idolism. I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, that's basically what we're living in, I think.
Yeah.
What's up,
yes.
Reddington?
Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. I agree with you. I think we live in a cargo cult / idolatry system. And even if we said we'll get rid of all the idols, we'll say we're gonna have an infinitely far away, infinitely powerful thing that we worship, well, that would just be another idol. But we're worshiping the concept of infinity as an idol, and we didn't get away from the problem.
The way I see idolatry, I don't know if I told you, Hank, but it's right there in the word. Idle as in idleness, like you're stuck, and then tree, like a literal tree. So it's basically like when you're stuck face up on a tree and you're missing the whole forest because you think this one tree is it. You think this one tree has all the answers, but you're in a whole forest and the whole forest has the answers, right? But you think like the Bible, many Christians will harp on that. Well, this has all the answers. This is the only book you need. That's idolatry because you're stuck on one thing when you're missing the whole reality. You can't use a book to determine reality. It's literally what idolatry means.
I agree. I advocate for diversification.
What do you think of all this TML?
It's interesting stuff. I think Hank is trying to be more provocative than anything. But
no, he's fine. He's
I like the general.
For all we know, I could be wrong. So
I'm not being provocative. I just think weird, but something's wrong with my brain or something.
Yeah, I've been told that in regard to my own thinking as well. So maybe we're birds of a feather or something. But yeah. But yeah, I generally agree that this the idea about principles and all that type of stuff, that most people don't have it. They're led by their lesser impulses as a result, and they're basically coerced by power structures that exist, right? So I follow some of that, and I feel like Mumford's going in that direction too, with his sort of ideas about authoritarian and democratic techniques, right? So I know Reddington just came in, but we will have to wrap this up soon because I talked to my wife on the phone, and so on and so forth.
I kind of figured, so I tried to get in here as
yeah.
I was like,
tomorrow.
Oh, shoot, it's past 2 hours. I need to get in here.
Yeah, tomorrow we have to start up at 7 a.m. So
Whew.
So tomorrow we will start at 7 a.m. and then we will stream from there for 6 hours.
A late start, for me at least.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I probably won't be able to attend because I got other obligations.
This is my weekend, so I can definitely pop in for sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we got Parmenides, we got some Shangzu. I've been able to find this text of the excerpts of Shangzu that we're reading, although I don't have a full translation of the Gelberg. So maybe there's a way that I could obtain a full translation of this. Right,
I could scrounge for one. Just tell me what to look for. I'll scrounge for one for you.
Shuangzu by Paul Gelberg translation. Paul Kjellberg translation. Let's see if this is available in full. Okay. Zhangzi, The Essential Writings. Translated by Brooke Ziporin. No, that's not the guy. Huh, this is weird. So he has a lot of essays on Shangzu, but I wonder why there's nowhere that you can find the complete his complete translation of the text.
Let's check his website. He has his own website, Paul J. Zubberg, or whatever. I'm not. No, that'd be a different one. I guess it's a common name. Yeah, it's a common name somehow.
Yeah, this is weird. Yeah, that's weird. Like, but yeah, so I guess only an excerpt of his translation is available, which we've put that in the chat before. I'll put it in the chat again. This is these are the excerpts that we've been reading of the Shangzu. Oh man, browser has lost connection to camera again.
God,
wow!
Damn it, StreamYard! Oh my god!
Incredible! Great stuff! Great stuff, StreamYard. So yeah, here's a Shangzu that we're reading. If you guys want to reference it, so we'll be looking at this Shangzu. We'll be looking at John Burnett. Okay, Greek, early Greek philosophy. I'll put that in the chat as well. You can download that and read it on your own, right? It's a book that's a very old resource on the pre-Socratic philosophers, right? So early Greek philosophy by John Burnett, right? This is a great resource to look at ideas in pre-Socratic philosophy, right? So we've been looking at these two resources on the show and then some other stuff. So yeah, so take a look at those two works. We'll be taking a look at them tomorrow and so on and so forth. And of course, this is what we have on screen is the Gelberg, Shangzu. So what do you guys think?
I don't really know.
Yeah, well, don't know what you're up to tomorrow morning, but stop by if you get the chance.
Yeah, it's gonna be 4 where I live when you start, because you live on the East Coast, right?
Right.
I woke up at like 2:30 a.m. today to go to work, and that's a late day for me. So
yeah, I'll probably be 3 hours into my stream before people in California even get a chance to check it out. So this is crazy stuff. So I never actually considered that. So it is what it is. But there'll be certain other people that are overseas. There's some audience members there that they'll be able to tune in.
Yeah.
.101 in the Netherlands. Yeah, this is interesting.
China's summon Voy or something?
No, Earth Supporter. I believe he's from the same area.
Oh.
I'm gonna ask Hank a big question because I got into a debate with someone about it the other day on that Finding Gnosis channel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you've been making the rounds. I saw you on a Confluence, and you were on Breakfast Tacos. So you
Lols.
were on quite a few channels there.
Yeah, Breakfast Tacos was probably the worst.
Yeah, he's going into for entertainment now. He's disrespecting science, and now he just want to do his atheist cult thing. But a disappointment.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that we have free will, Hank, or is that just made up?
Hell no.
Yeah, he's a no on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Sapolsky has entered the chat. Maybe.
Yeah, Isaiah 45 and Romans 9 says no free will.
Sad trombone.
Also,
Really?
yes,
I didn't know that.
yeah. In fact, Machine Lice and I were in the debate on that with I guess Teriok and Jake Paul. No,
The
Jake
question.
Fenton. Yes.
Well, he's not a Christian anymore, so it's kind of crazy. It's kind of awkward that debate is still up. I should just take that debate down.
Nah,
Or
leave it
call
up.
it
For historical reference.
historical reference of Tyriak as a Christian for 6 months.
Absolutely. Historical reference.
It's better than 25 years or more.
Oh man.
That's a big sad trombone.
Well, I don't know. What about the 1500 years of Western civilization being Christian? Holy moly. Guacamole. So yeah, but yeah. Is will free?
Ooh, baby.
Will free.
And if it's not free, is it random?
I made a video explaining that it is free. How? But what free will is it navigates between duality. So it has all these options and potential that it can choose from, and it exists within a coherent structure, or we do here, where all of our choices matter and have real influence in the world.
So basically had the free will to choose what I was going to choose.
Yes, but you have many options typically to choose from, but some are more desirable than others because that's just what you gravitate towards based off of your intentions.
So do I have the free will to grow 6 foot tall?
We exist within a realm of limitations, and we use our free will to navigate this realm of limitations based off of what it presents us. But we must work within its confines.
Do I have the free will to change my own history?
Definitely. Although I think that one dude, Twilight, was a case for that.
Oh, Hyperborean. What would we do without you?
If we didn't have Hyperborean, we would have to create him.
Dole. So he becomes the golem.
Yep.
Hyperborean golem.
Well, you see, it's the restrictions and the limitations which define free will. For example, if we lived in a huge void where there was absolutely nothing, but we can move or do whatever we wanted, or we can even change our form, what would we actually be doing?
We would be God. We would be the highest possible God because we could make anything we wanted without restriction.
Hold on a second. You said it was absolutely nothing, so how are we there? How is it a
We
place?
are the nothing.
Right, because
we are the
because
void.
in a realm of absolutely nothing, that's really the only place that can exist without restrictions.
Yeah, you are the background, so you get to draw whatever you want on yourself.
So in that case, then you would
I
need
guess
something to draw.
non-contradictions don't matter.
Correct. That's that's omnipotence. The contradictions don't matter anymore. You do what the hell you want.
I would argue in that realm, nothing matters anymore.
Everything matters just as much as you say it does.
If you have a realm where there's nothing, you couldn't really do anything.
But there's nothing to stop me from doing anything, and I am the nothing.
What are you going to do with nothing?
Everything.
How?
A Big Bang, apparently.
Magic.
But even the Big Bang relied on something.
Magic is how.
How do you know?
Well, that's based off of my explanations that I've heard on the Big Bang from that dude, Michio Kaku.
Oh,
Yeah, I've heard his explanation for the Big Bang.
So
So
if the
pretty mainstream, but
if the world's nothing and I am the nothing, what would stop me from making everything with magic?
nothing.
Exactly. I'm only getting my own way. That's the only possible thing.
Yeah. No, Hank, nothing would literally stop you from doing that because there'd be nothing to interact or nothing to work your magic on.
Yes. So the only thing that would stop me is myself.
Hank has achieved admin powers.
Exactly. From that point on, I can only get my own way.
Hig Town or something. Hank goes his own way.
I would just call that Relmo Flamo.
I think there's one of Zeno paradoxes that is pretty close to this. It's his racetrack paradox, where if you have all these different people moving, but there's no racetrack or nothing to measure them or see them moving against, where are they moving?
They're not.
Sounds like uncertainty principle.
Yeah. If you can't measure the movement, then they're not moving.
But in this realm, there would be no limitations because you're free to go anywhere. There's nothing external.
So measurement is equated with experience?
Yes, you have to have a reference to have a measurement. So you need more than one object to have any kind of measurement, to have any distance.
Yeah, and I think, the closest thing that I can think of that would come to that would be people in solitary confinement for a long time. Those people don't do very well there because they're not having any experience. But the point is, if you existed in nothing, in a realm, because nothing is the only thing or the only place I can think of where there are no limitations. There would be no free will because there would be nothing to choose from and nothing to make your choices matter.
Unless you said there is, then you do have them.
Because you wouldn't be there. You'd be nothing, brother.
But you are the nothing, so you get to set the rules.
How if you don't exist?
Because you're the background. You can make things exist.
Background of what?
Exactly the question you're gonna answer.
Jesus.
Exactly. That's the point. You get to define the what.
How did we get here? This is Tom's fault.
Well, look, I'm trying to demonstrate here, Rochelle,
No
that in order for
limitations.
free will to exist. There has to be something for free will to interact with. Or else
Exactly, and that's why free will does
doesn't
not
exist.
exist, because it's not possible for it to interact with anything. Between determinism and indeterminism, there's no room.
Rutro Hyperborean.
Yes, there is a place of no limitations that we can't conceive of. And it's either whole, as in holy, or it's what Avian says, and it's empty. And I don't know, it's one or the other. But even there, it's exerting its will over all of being simultaneously. It doesn't exist in nothing. And
Exactly.
through us here, in this fractal of the will, if we exist, there are limitations. And the only way that I can perceive of a realm where there are no limitations would be a realm where there's nothing, because there would be nothing restricting you.
I agree.
And then there would be no experience or anything.
Unless you said there would be.
Well, if we take the Bible, for example, like when God speaks unto the earth, God is speaking unto something. He's speaking unto the water in the Bible. So if you're existing in a large void where there's literally nothing, what are you going to speak to make it something that you want it to be?
Whenever you want.
The way I would see it is it would be like shouting into an empty room that's so large you're not even going to hear yourself. So basically, there's no walls or anything for your sound waves to bounce off of and come back to you.
You are the room. You yourself are the room. So if you want the waves to bounce, then they're coming back.
Well, I think that we're at an impasse, because you think that from being nothing that you can just materialize anything ex nihilo, and I think that in a state of nothing there can literally be no experience or nothing to be had at all.
Yes, but there would be nothing.
Because you wouldn't be there.
Yeah, there would be nothing to stop me from having experience from that point. No restriction.
But you wouldn't be there either, Hank.
I could just manifest myself there.
Like to see that happen.
Well, I had to manifest you there too.
Count me out.
Let's say you exist there. I don't know. Let's say you exist there as like this air thing, or as this set of molecules that has no form. How would you interact in this realm of nothing?
Well, when I sell molecules, I will interact with myself. Because that's the only thing there.
Which is what exactly?
Some molecules.
But that's something.
Yeah, but I said that he's made, like in this instance, he's made of something, but he exists in nothing.
I have myself to interact with, and that's it.
And would you have free will in that instance?
Well, according to your definition, yes, but according to mine, no.
I would say no, because the limitation is yourself, and there's literally nothing for the self to interact with and choose from.
Well, you choose from the set of functions molecules can do in a void. So you get to choose from all those actions.
Well, as it is now, I don't think I can change the molecules in my body. Although I'm sure if you were like this in a void, you might eventually figure it out.
If you say so.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that we have free will because we interact between these forces of duality. And if there was nothing to interact with, nothing would matter, and there would be nothing to choose from.
But I don't see any free will between determinism and indeterminism, because you can't modify your history. There's limits to how you can modify your body. There's limits to what you can physically accomplish.
Yes, there are limits on the body. But, you know, for example, if we want to fly, we could make things like planes or whatever and fly. Now, it's not going to be in the same way a bird, but we could do something no animal can do, and let's put ourselves in an environment that we're not meant to live in through our technology.
But that's
Well,
just
so-
your opinion that we're not meant to live in there. The fact that we are living there signals that we're meant to be there.
Well, you know, things like submarines, you know, that go deep underwater, you know, we're not meant to live deep underwater, but we can go there for a time period. And it's not very good for those people either to be underwater for a long time. But, you know, this is what I mean by we can go to places we're not meant to live.
All right, guys, we got to really shut this thing down. I actually do have to skedaddle at this point. But yeah, I will be back tomorrow morning, as I said, 7 a.m. 7:30 to be precise. Right?
Yeah, I'll get out so I don't extend your show too much longer.
he does that. But yeah, blessings to you guys.
All right. Well, I guess I don't know if I'll be on tomorrow, but yeah. I'm going to get off now too. Laters.
Yeah, peace down. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, man. Blessings. And do you want to say anything to these people or anything?
Do not seek the treasure. I haven't
Right.
said that in a while.
Exactly. So
There is
Yes.
no treasure.
exactly. Right. So we'll be back soon. You know, as I said, 7 a.m. You know, I hope
No cake either.
Yeah. You know, I hope we'll have the similar characters, you know, Dom and Hank and, you know, some of the people that are here, you know, obviously Red said he may not attend. So obviously I will be up here pretty much alone so far, right? Because
I
Avian
might
is-
be able to be there for a little bit, but
Yeah.
I got stuff to do.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. Yeah, nobody's obliged to, you know, but yeah, I do really appreciate the correspondence. Honestly, lots of correspondences today. You know, we'll see where we're at 7 in the morning. Honestly, I predict most of the first 3 hours will just be me alone. So if you guys appreciate that sort of thing, I know a lot of people like the opening of the shows and, you know, me discussing the material. So of course we'll be back with that. Thank you for joining us here on The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. I got to sort of run and eat and, you know, go to the you know, local mosque and so on and so forth. So we will be right there in a little bit with you guys. You know, 7 a.m. instead, right? So I could sort of shift the time for the rest of this month, right? So I can perform certain rituals and and tasks. So we'll be there. So I will shift the time. I'll make a post about it tonight, right? So go look at the post in the morning. We'll have a new schedule only for this week, 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. The stream will start. Blessings.
Stroke, 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 stroke. My mind speaks mathematics. Sometimes I feel English is a poor translation of my heart's palpitations. That's why I give it to you quarter notes at a time, so that my rhymes are aided by body gyrations. But now it's like each hymn ain't nothing but a word with countless synonyms. Where should I begin with them? Every sentence is a jail bed, locking me into bars of meaning with so much space between them, and it's all real. If I took a little bit of time to reflect on the unreal, my brain might peel off my mind to reveal this Pegasus spree well, wholesale fairy tale echo in the conch shell. But why say it if you can't see it? I could call it abstract and say take what you want from it. I could do that all day till my tongue goes numb from it. But see what good will come from it. I got something to say, I can't run from it. I gotta confront it. I can't watch while this music that taught me so much as a child grows louder every day, but the world grows dumb from it. So every line that I draw from my pen that shapes a letter that makes a word that feeds a verse is a swim for home. A place with infinite styles, but it feels like 9,000 miles. So I stroke through the Atlantic, stroke through the Pacific, stroke through the Indian, stroke through the Arctic, stroke through the cold current, stroke through the warm current, stroke through the fair and the foul for 9,000 miles. Stroke like you're swimming from the sharks and the slave ship. Stroke from the suicide jump to a brave trip. Stroke like you see the shoreline in the distance. Stroke like if you don't, you'll drown in the instant. Stroke, so here we are again, the same space in mind, but now we in a different place at a different time, a different taste to a different rhyme, with so many flavors to embrace. I can't waste the line, so I'm going for self with no hesitation, cause my self-expression is my self-preservation. My skills pay bills to fulfill my will, to do for others what I do for myself, like motivation through verses. If it wasn't virtual conversation on the pros and the cons of a real situation, inspired by my knowledge of self-determination to ease the frustrations of miseducation. It's wise God music from I, taking your eye from trials and tribulations to kingdom and the patience. That's why our path is beaten by beats made from good vibrations, passed down for generations. On a stroke through the Atlantic, stroke through the Pacific, stroke through the Indian, stroke through the Arctic, stroke through the cold current, stroke through the warm current, stroke through the fair and the foul for 9,000 miles. Stroke like you're swimming from the sharks and the slave ship. Stroke from a suicide jump to a brave trip. Stroke like you see the shoreline in the distance. Stroke like if you don't, you'll drown in the instant. Stroke I get hyped, I get home at night, I get a beat in my head, I get my book to write, I get writer's block, I get so stressed that I get no rhymes from it just to get rest. I get frustrated from this whole world mess, so when I got to get the bad air out my chest, I get on the mic and strive to be the best. But it's not just the flow, there's more to the test. I gotta spit like there's no time to waste, spit like I can't take away this life taste, spit for rebellion, spit for resistance, spit for accuracy, spit for distance. I can't just spit that shit you can market, even though I know we got the same target. And I can't just spit that old rhetoric, I gotta spit what's 10 steps ahead of it. I gotta spit for the life of my kids, and not just the next meal from my next deal. I feel like these rhymes can shape tomorrow, so they can walk through it with a little less sorrow. I gotta spit out the mouthpiece protection, and stick and move these lines to perfection. I gotta spit shit no one ever thought of, spit like I'm a choke on the salt water. When I stroke through the Atlantic, stroke through the Pacific, stroke through the Indian, stroke through the Arctic, stroke through the cold current, stroke through the warm current, stroke through the fair and the foul for 9,000 miles. Stroke like you're swimming from the sharks and the slave ship. Stroke from a suicide jump to a brave trip. Stroke like you see the shoreline in the distance. Stroke like if you don't, you'll drown in the instant. Stroke.
now it seems as if we're used to the shaggy. We made our beds and now we hate where these beds be. Took nothing at all to part this Red Sea. I'm a shackled child, singing the good song of freedom. They've got no pride, they interrupt our grieving. Teardrops dropping for the pain of the world. My best friend dies when she was just a young girl. Left me here to fend for myself, now the pain never leaves. We just learn to cope, so when the devil needs hanging, will you tie up the rope and shout, pull? Let's put an end to this bull Zen thing. How many years before we practice what we preach? How many tears before we truly clinch the peak? All of the I'm all thanks to all men, singing the good song. Now it seems as if we're used to the shaggy. We made our beds and now we hate where these beds be. Took nothing at all to part this Red Sea. I'm a shackled child, singing the good song of freedom. They've got no pride, they interrupt our grieving. Teardrops dropping for the pain of the world. My best friend dies when she was just a young girl. Left me here to fend for myself, now the pain never leaves. We just learn to cope, so when the devil needs hanging, will you tie up the rope and shout, pull? Let's put an end to this bull Zen thing. How many years before we practice what we preach? How many tears before we truly clinch the peak? Only to find that there is no honey on the moon. Official goon with the unofficial croon. I'm all thanks to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it till my time is. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all thanks to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it till my time is. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? 16 bar cycles, heartfelt recital. From the wacky blackie man, they should've called me Michael. Look at the monster you made, look at the monster you pay. But you claim no responsibility, cause it's each to himself in these times that we live. Does God have a sense of humor? Then the joke's on us, cause we're chasing our tails for how long? The tussle makes us house strong. Vintage poor people's fun. If we could ease up on these booze and fags, then just maybe life wouldn't seem so mad. Be a man, my dad said, but what the hell he know? He lost these dreams, he lost his flow, and I don't wanna be alone. I'm born king, so where's my throne? I'm too intense, I'm too deep, I'm too nice for life. So what makes this place so nervous? I'm all thanks to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it till my time is. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all thanks to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all thanks to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all thanks to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? humility, but you claim not. We're searching for Jesus, but I'll be damned if I'll be crucified. 10,000 spies, compulsive lies. They hate me, they love me, they hate me. Cause I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when, and I'll take you to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest?
put it on you. Check. When the stone cold riddles apply, it's usually congruent with this angel that flew a little too high. Feathers burst while the tethers nursed the back of my side. And when he woke, he said he knows where the helium goes and why I could peel the sky back, revealing all the stars and Billy God's unfiltered cigarettes burning holes in the ceiling. Emerging out the grimace of the dawn of man. Shop one up for the rainmaker strain with speaker wire vein and honest plans. I'm certain over the tallest rainbows gotta sit more than a cauldron of pesos and bottle chips. The snake is more to life than a failure, his nozzle spits. Plus in his big brush, I slip dust in a rusted maze or major hospital sips. Drifter on Chevy Valveless kisser. Talking tank, walking a plank off the Big Dipper. Lip zipper for the common folk. You see what art and time will up on some midsummer night lust freedom train. Most cream brains will buckle. Yeah, there ain't no constellation that spells flattery. Dance to the song of a billion little Galileo toddlers choked over they broke my first Sony telescope. Moon gaze and math getters, the tears blood, the illustrated comic tale on the napkin. Ace rock limit choker. Cross the lasso for the Mr. Voters. Left the ones them outdoor for the gimmick quotas. I let them bang across the dock with they feet dangling for the shark. Siamese fighting fish to pick apart. I got a spirit that springs to life when the scissor hand slit throat modules collaborate with nasty. It makes the school children disrupt the class with Mrs. Crabtree. Catch your mortal, show these motherfuckers how to strike a match.
Like this, cats is like fish flowing in the ocean of my emotions. I'm often lost in this realm, burning the L, wanting to flow and get fly like them birds on the block that love to get. I'm all day trapped in the fields, watching the skies, thinking to self, what's the word for life? Then I learned how to burst on mic, shine divine and purify earth with lines. Feeling as a pigeon that turned phoenix, screaming, we only living when we got it, so freedom. Remembering days when wrapped in the eating, gotta like spit these raps with a meaning, to find that reason why a nigga breathing. Every day get up with words that get mics feeding, strike even with darts straight from the heart. This is how we do this, escape the sky's limit through music. This is how we do this. This is how we do this.